The annual Thompson family 4th of July barbecue was in full swing in Lisa and Brad's backyard. Red, white, and blue decorations hung from the deck railings while the smell of grilled burgers filled the warm afternoon air. I sat at the patio table with my husband Mark, watching the kids run through the sprinkler while the adults nosed cold beers and discussed their summer plans. The new kitchen renovation is finally finished, Lisa announced proudly to the gathered relatives. Granite countertops, custom cabinets, the works. Appreciative murmurs circled the table. Uncle Joe raised his beer in a toast to successful home improvements. It wasn't cheap, Brad added with a good-natured groan. But Lisa deserves the best. Hard work pays off, Aunt Carol said approvingly. You two have really built something special here. Lisa beamed at the compliments. It's so satisfying to know we owned every square foot of this place ourselves. I smiled and took another sip of my wine, enjoying the family atmosphere despite the subtle undertone I could sense building. Not everyone can say that, Lisa continued, her voice taking on a sharper edge. Some people get handed everything on a silver platter. Mark shifted uncomfortably beside me. The conversation was heading in a familiar direction. Must be nice living off Daddy's money, Lisa said with a smirk, looking directly at me. Brad chuckled and shook his head. Some of us actually work for our homes. The relatives exchanged knowing glances. This was apparently a topic they'd discussed before. Lisa, Mark said quietly, that's not really fair. Oh come on, Mark. We're all family here. Lisa gestured toward their house with obvious pride. Brad and I have been saving for 15 years to afford this place. Every mortgage payment comes from our own paychecks. As it should, Uncle Joe agreed. There's real satisfaction in building wealth through honest work. I continued sipping my wine quietly, having learned over the years that defending myself only made these conversations worse. I mean, there's nothing wrong with inheriting money, Aunt Carol added diplomatically. But it's different from earning it yourself. Exactly, Lisa said, warming to her theme. When everything gets handed to you, you don't really understand the value of money. Brad nodded approvingly. Real estate especially. Do you know how hard it is to qualify for a mortgage these days? The paperwork, the credit checks, the income verification. Unless your daddy just writes a check, Lisa added with a laugh. Mark's jaw tightened. Actually, Emily's father didn't. That's when his phone rang, interrupting the conversation. He glanced at the screen and frowned. It's our bank manager, he said, looking puzzled. Why would David be calling on a holiday? Better answer it, I suggested mildly. Could be important. Mark stepped away from the table to take the call. Hello, David? What's going on? Even from several feet away, we could hear the urgent tone of the voice on the other end. I'm sorry to bother you on the 4th of July, Mark, but we need to discuss the mortgage holder for your property immediately. Mark looked confused. The mortgage holder? What about it? There's been a change in ownership of your loan. The new company is requesting immediate contact with all borrowers. Change in ownership? When did this happen? Lisa and Brad had gone quiet, obviously listening to Mark's side of the conversation with growing interest. The transfer completed yesterday, David continued. Sterling Financial Group has acquired your mortgage along with several others in the portfolio. Mark's face went pale. Sterling Financial Group. Yes, they are requesting a meeting with all affected borrowers to discuss terms. I have the contact information for their representative. David, Mark interrupted, what's the name of the company representative? Let me check. Emily Sterling. She's listed as the managing partner. The silence that followed was deafening. Mark slowly turned to look at me, his mouth slightly open. Emily Sterling, he repeated for the benefit of the table. Lisa's confident smirk vanished instantly. Brad's beer can froze halfway to his lips. That's my wife, Mark said into the phone, loud enough for everyone to hear. Your wife owns Sterling Financial. David sounded surprised. I had no idea you were married to Emily Sterling. Mark was staring at me with a mixture of shock and dawning realization. How long has Sterling Financial owned our mortgage? As of yesterday, but the acquisition process has been ongoing for several months. Ms. Sterling's company has been quite aggressive in the mortgage purchasing market. Mark hung up the phone and walked back to the table in a daze. The entire family was staring at him expectantly. "Emily," he said slowly, "do you want to explain what just happened?" I set down my wine glass and smiled pleasantly. "Sterling Financial Group is my company. We specialize in purchasing mortgage portfolios from traditional banks." Lisa's mouth fell open. "Your company?" "I founded it about 6 years ago. We buy mortgages at discount rates and manage them directly." Brad was trying to process the information. "So you own our mortgage now?" "Sterling Financial owns it, yes. Along with about 2,000 others in the metropolitan area." Uncle Joe leaned forward with sudden interest. 2,000 mortgages? That's about 400 million in assets, I confirmed. "Give or take, depending on market conditions." The silence that followed was profound. Lisa looked like she might faint. $400 million, Aunt Carol whispered. "The mortgage business has been quite profitable," I explained. "Banks are often eager to sell their loan portfolios, especially in uncertain markets." Mark was still processing everything. "Emily, why didn't you tell me you bought our mortgage?" "I didn't specifically target our mortgage. Sterling Financial acquired the entire portfolio from First National Bank. I only realized our loan was included when I reviewed the list yesterday." Lisa finally found her voice. "So when you said Daddy's money?" "I was thinking about the irony," I replied gently. "My father actually did help me get started. He co-signed my first business loan for $50,000. $50,000, Brad repeated numbly. "Which I used as seed capital to buy my first distressed mortgage portfolio. The returns were good enough to reinvest, and the business grew from there." Uncle Joe was clearly trying to calculate numbers in his head. 6 years from 50,000 to 400 million. "Compound growth is powerful when you understand market timing," I explained. "Plus, I reinvested everything back into the business rather than taking profits." Lisa was staring at her house with a new expression. "Our mortgage payments, they go to you now. To Sterling Financial, administered through a servicing company. You won't notice any difference in your payment process." "But you literally own our house," Brad said weakly. "I own the loan secured by your house," I corrected. "As long as you make your payments, you own the house. That's how mortgages work." Mark was shaking his head in amazement. "Emily, this is incredible. Why didn't you ever mention how successful Sterling Financial had become? You never asked about the business details. You knew I worked in finance, but we don't usually discuss work at family gatherings." "Finance," Lisa laughed, but it sounded hysterical. "You said finance. We thought you meant like, bookkeeping or something." "I can see how that would be confusing." Aunt Carol was looking at me with new respect. "Emily, building a $400 million company, that's extraordinary." "I've been fortunate with timing and had good advisors," I said modestly. "Fortunate?" Uncle Joe snorted. "That's not fortune, that's business genius." Brad was still staring at his house. "So when you said some people work for their homes?" "I was thinking about how hard it is to build wealth in any business," I replied diplomatically. "Real estate, finance, whatever the field." Lisa looked mortified. "Emily, I'm so sorry. The things I said about Daddy's money." "Your father did help you get started," Mark pointed out. "With a $50,000 loan that I paid back within 2 years, I clarified. Everything after that was reinvested profits." "Reinvested profits of $400 million, Brad said, still trying to wrap his head around the numbers. As the afternoon continued, the family's entire dynamic shifted. Suddenly everyone was interested in my opinions about real estate markets, interest rates, and investment strategies. Lisa apologized repeatedly for her earlier comments. Brad asked detailed questions about the mortgage business. "Can I ask you something?" Lisa said as we were cleaning up. "When I said you were living off Daddy's money, what were you thinking?" "Honestly, I was thinking about whether to mention that Sterling Financial had just acquired your mortgage." "What made you decide not to say anything?" "I wanted to see if you'd ask about my work instead of making assumptions about it." Lisa winced. "I never asked what you actually did I? Not once in 6 years of family gatherings." I just assumed. God, I don't even know what I assumed. During the drive home, Mark was unusually quiet. What are you thinking about? I asked. How many times Lisa has made comments about Daddy's money over the years, and I never properly defended you. You didn't know the full scope of Sterling Financial. But I knew you'd built something significant. I should have pushed back harder on her assumptions. I reached over and squeezed his hand. Mark, I didn't need you to fight my battles. But I did appreciate you trying to change the subject. Still, $400 million, Emily. And she thought you were some trust fund baby. Technically, I did use family money to get started. $50,000 that you paid back. That's not living off Daddy's money, that's using a business loan. The next week, Lisa called to apologize again and ask for advice about refinancing their mortgage. Brad inquired about investment opportunities with Sterling Financial. And Uncle Joe requested a meeting to discuss his retirement planning. Sometimes the best response to assumptions about inherited wealth is simply letting the bank manager explain who actually owns the loan.